trying something new on the RevTV YouTube channel. We came up with this idea just a couple of weeks ago and thought, let's go. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can come up with. We're going to try something different. So it's going to be a weekly program. And yeah, you get me for, I don't know, however long my voice holds out and I can keep talking. I'm Todd Lewis. We're going to talk about motorsports and things that have gone on, things that are coming up in the future. It's not going to be a results-oriented show. We won't give you a list of the top 10 or anything that took place at events. We will talk about events. We'll talk about bigger stories. We'll talk about stories surrounding them. We'll talk about other stories in media and motorsports and the future, the past, maybe some good reflective stories of the past and fun stories from the past and stuff too. I will probably refer to notes every now and again. I may even put glasses on because I can hardly read them right now in my terrible handwriting. But we're experimenting. We're going to try something. It's a bit of a free form. Let's see where this takes us. And we would love your input. We would love your feedback. Hit us up on the social channels, be it Twitter, be it, X, or Instagram. And at RevTV, at Todd Lewis Sports is my handle as well on both Insta and on X. And use the hashtag Speed Chronicles because that's what we're calling the show, is Speed Chronicles. And that's what I mean is not necessarily results oriented, but we will talk about racing and motorsports and business. And we figured that this was probably a pretty good time to get started because we just finished what is the most anticipated, arguably, weekend of motorsports in terms of the big series, be that Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR, because of course you have Formula One at the Monaco Grand Prix to kick things off, the Indianapolis 500, the greatest spectacle in racing, in the afternoon, and then it wraps up with the Coca-Cola 600 in the evening. A few of these events overlapped this year because, of course, we had Kyle Larson, who was trying to do the double and race the Indianapolis 500, then hustle himself to Charlotte to run in the Coca-Cola 600. And now, of course, because he didn't get to race in the 600, there's this whole discussion and debacle about whether or not he should be allowed to participate in the race. Well, Larson did everything in his power to get to Charlotte to race. And if weather had not prevented NASCAR from restarting, which was a whole other argument in itself, if NASCAR had restarted the race, he'd have been there. He'd have been in the car. He would have participated. And no one would even be talking about this nonsense because that's really what it is. It's nonsense. And that he needs a waiver to get into the playoffs and the standings of the championship that he was leading going into this event seems very curious and very odd to me. But that wrapped up the weekend in terms of racing. Let's start at the beginning with Formula One, the Monaco Grand Prix that gets discussed and kicked around every year about this time because it's Formula One. It's Monaco. It is an event of dripping wealth. Although the cars have outgrown the circuit many, many years ago, it's still a tremendous event. Should you look at ways to improve the racing, make it go smoother, make it go better, make it competitive so that you don't really have just a high-speed parade through the streets of Monaco surrounded by the Armco barriers? Yes, I think we should. I don't know what the solutions are to do that, short of reducing the performance of the cars, making them a little smaller. Maybe they could race tinier cars. Maybe they could race scale versions of the Formula One cars. Maybe you have to build a separate car just for Monaco. I don't know. But it seems like this, oh, we got to get rid of this because the cars have outgrown it, is incredibly short-sighted. If you get rid of it, the first thing you're going to want to do is have another event of this magnitude, of this street race. Essentially, they're trying to recreate Monaco in other areas with Miami and Las Vegas and having these incredible street races. So why would you get rid of it? Make the cars, make the circuit better suited to the cars, then you solve the problem. Indianapolis 500, yeah, what a race. What a race. Closing laps with Pato O'Ward chasing down Joseph Newgarden and passing him, coming to the white flag. Newgarden not giving up, following in his tracks out of corner 2, making the pass in 3, swooping around the outside, taking the checkered flag, back-to-back Indy 500 victories. An incredible race for Joseph Newgarden. Yes, there are some that are trying to cloud the issue and tie together the Penske penalty. I don't even want to call it a scandal because it's not a scandal. Yeah, they were found to be afoul of the rules. Were they punished by the series? Yes, rather severely, I would say. And then Mr. Penske punished his team. All right, that's fine. Teams always work in the gray areas. I don't care if you're Penske or anybody else. I do not believe that Roger Penske knew that this was going on. If I did, I would say so. I do not believe he knew that this was going on. I think when he had some very pointed conversations, he found out the extent of the knowledge, and that's why he subsequently issued his own penalties on top of it. I don't think it takes away or detracts from Joseph Newgarden's victory at all. Chevys were dominant in that event, the Penske Chevys especially, and he won it with a tremendous pass and by running a tremendous race. So I think it was fantastic. And then again, as I say, the Coca-Cola 600 wrapped up the incredible day of action. Well, it didn't quite go 600 miles, but that's because of the rain. And again, it's funny how people are so quick to find and find fault and manufacture controversy. Trademark pending. That's a term we'll use a lot in this Speed Chronicles program, I think, is manufactured controversy of, oh, they should have dried the track. We should have waited. I don't know. Did you go till 2 o'clock in the morning? Because that's maybe how long it would have taken to get the track dried and run. I don't think you go till 2 o'clock in the morning. I think you give it an effort. It's not happening. Okay. Oh, yes, maybe it was dry at 1 o'clock, but the best information that they had at the time didn't look like it was going to dry and we were going to get things running and finish maybe before 2 o'clock. I think that's a ridiculous hour to be holding people hostage, if you will, in the grandstands. Yep, you're right. It's supposed to be 600 miles, but it doesn't always work that way in terms of weather. This is the sport that weather impacts whether or not you can race or not sometimes. So you just have to deal with it. Like the whole, oh, we have to have a green flag finish. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And this trying to manufacture a green flag finish all the time, I think becomes consuming and frustrating for an awful lot of people. So those were the big ones this past weekend. We'll see what lies ahead because we got more action this weekend with the Canadian Racing Series getting going as well. The NASCAR Canada Series, who had a spectacular opening weekend on Victoria Day. All Canadian series, NASCAR Canada Series. We had the Sports Car Championship Canada presented by Michelin. We had the M-Zone Radicals, F1600s, Nissan Sentra Cup, all at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in outside of Toronto. And it was a spectacular weekend, an enormous crowd. And this is for an all-Canadian lineup, which I think is a big deal because these crowds, I'm told, were rivaling the IMSA crowd weekend that they hold in July. Huge crowds, sensational to see so much camping, so busy. Just looking on the hill overlooking the front straightaway before the start of the race, it was packed. It was busier than I think I've ever seen it, which is a wonderful thing for Canadian racing. So NASCAR Canada gets going on the oval this weekend at the Autodrome Chaudière in Valley Jonction, Quebec, second race of the year. And this track has provided some wonderful oval track, hard door-to-door racing in the NASCAR Canada Series. It was Marc-Antoine Camirand who won a year ago, a terrific victory. We've had some sensational side-by-side battles going back a number of years to Caden Lapsevich and Alex Labay, Jason Hathaway winning the first couple. There's a lot of good racing that has taken place there. And I'll be watching that race on Saturday evening because I'm headed to Detroit for the IndyCar event at the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix. And anxious to see. They moved the race off Belle Isle last year, moved it back downtown. It's a tight course. It's very tricky, but as we saw last year, makes for some pretty exciting racing action. It's the only circuit with a dual pit lane. Half the cars pit on the left-hand side, the other half of the cars pit on the right-hand side. IMSA is back this year with the GTP cars and the GTD Pro cars. So we'll have IMSA on track as well. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun and exciting weekend. So this is what it'll be about. It'll be talking about racing. I didn't even get into the Stewart-Haas Racing closing and that announcement being made. Speculated for a number of weeks that it was going to happen. I kind of want to let this play out a little bit because everybody, again, is throwing stones a little bit. And how could they let this happen? And it's a terrible travesty that NASCAR and Stewart-Haas Racing is letting this happen. Unfortunately, this is the business of motorsports sometimes, which we will talk about a bit. And sometimes businesses close down, and the principals involved that have owned them for a lot of years and put a lot of their life and sweat and blood and money into them decide that they need to go off and do other things. Tony Stewart's been getting involved in drag racing for a number of years. Gene Haas has been involved in Formula One for a number of years. And the effort that's necessary by them and hundreds of people to make for a successful race team are challenging. They've had sponsors that have left. They had sponsors coming to them years ago, like when Kevin Harvick went over and won a championship, and they had sponsors and they had 4 drivers and teams and things were really good. But like any business, there are up and down cycles, and Stewart-Haas Racing has been through some struggles over the last couple of years. So I feel bad that a few hundred people are going to be displaced from their jobs. Hopefully all of them find work in other areas and do other things. And let's see what happens. But this is going to have a big impact on the NASCAR business in terms of going forward, what happens with the charter discussions, a whole other thing that we'll get into more of as this season moves along, because IndyCar is talking about doing that as well. And you got the whole Formula One controversy, if you will, with should Andretti be allowed in or not. It's Speed Chronicles. That's the name of the program. Thanks for checking out the first edition. Please send us your thoughts, send us your ideas, send us your questions on our social channels at RevTV and at Todd Lewis Sports. If you want to use it, use the hashtag Speed Chronicles. We'll do this every week about this time. It'll drop on Wednesday evening early. As you can see, we've really planned a lot of the structure and format, but that's what it is. It's going to be an experiment. We're going to talk about racing. We're going to talk about motorsports and the business and all different aspects, and we'll go from there and see what develops. And we look forward and welcome your input as well. So thanks for checking out the first edition of Speed Chronicles. We'll be back to do it again next week.